All right, so I'm going to zoom to fit. Let's go back to the elevation framing system, and let's get to another tab here. So the stock length tab, that's going to have all your stock length parts that make up this framing system. So if there's anything that is not supposed to be there, and it shows up in your final parts list and you're wondering where this part's coming from, chances are it's coming from here. It could be coming from, if it has an entrance, from the door frame part window or the door leaf part window, which are kind of similar to this but smaller and less fields, but same concept. Any part that shows up in your final parts report is coming from one of these configuration windows. So all your stock links are here, and what I want to show you today is if I point to one of these part numbers, it's going to show me a description for the part. It never used to do that. So I can point to these, and you'll notice it gives me a description. So I know this is a filler part, and I know this is like a glass stop. I know this is a main member. I know this is a glass stop. So it's pretty cool that you can point to it now and see what it is. Like I know that that's a receptor. So that's something that's new. And then if I click in this field where this part is, I can say, or I can just point to this little blue arrow. So this little blue arrow is like optional information. That opens up this where I can actually change the quantity of that part, or I can even adjust the length of it. So if I want to adjust the length of it and say I need this part to be cut less than 1/16 of an inch, um, anytime that part is cut. So if it's a horizontal, it's basically going to be uh, 3 horizontals here. There's 3 of these parts going to be cut for this elevation, and each one of those cuts is going to be um, 1/16 shorter. So that's what this is for. Now you can still just type it in manually like before, like we used to be able to type in greater than, 0.25. That's going to add 1/4 of an inch. I can also type less than. So I can do all that. I can even say asterisks. So we used to be able to do this before with the old screen. I could say I need 2 of these parts. So that's how it's still going to look. But the difference is I can click on that field, point to the blue arrow, and it's going to show me those values here where I can easily adjust them. So I can put a minus sign if I need it to be shorter, and I can put, I guess we'll delete the 0. But yeah, if I need it to be, like I said, a 1/16 inch shorter, I would say minus 0.0625. And then I can just click somewhere else and it shows up there. So that's new. And now I'll show you where else that applies. So that applies to all the stock lengths. But we can still, see the detail files, where they're located. I can still view a detail, and I can size it. I can even edit that detail in CAD and print it from there. I can do all those kinds of things. So that's still there. That was there before. Now, one thing worth mentioning is, let's say I've made changes to this frame for this elevation in this job. We know it's only applying to this particular elevation, but if I decide that this would be good to have in the master list, I can go down here and click Save to Master. And that's something that you could always do before too, at least in the last several years. But it's worth pointing out again that you can make a bunch of changes in a job elevation frame and decide, yeah, this would be good to keep as a master, and it would add it to your list of frames. So just wanted to point that out. So now we've gone over the little blue arrow and what it pops up. Now let's look and see what it does when we go to, it's also going to do the same thing here where it shows us the quantity, because we can have multiple quantities. And then over in this tab, this is for gasket. So right now we don't let you adjust the length of gasket. It's just going to cut it by daylight opening basically. So maybe at some point we'll say you can add, 1/8 of an inch to a gasket piece or something, but right now it's not going to do it, so it doesn't show you that length adjustment. But here, for miscellaneous parts, this is where there's a kind of a big difference. You can do the multiples. So we've got a multiple of 2 for this part, but you can also say now you'll notice there's no adjustment for length because we're talking about screws, setting blocks, clips, water deflectors, things like that. You'll notice that there's a different section here. It says apply, and if I check that, every 12 inches, so this would be in inches, on center, and so many inches from the edge. So if this is a part that every time there's a horizontal, there needs to be one every 12 inches, then this is what I'm going to check this box for and put in the value. And I can also say it needs to be a minimum of 2 inches from the edge. So then it's going to calculate how many of these parts are needed based on whatever cut length the program figures out for the horizontal, or any of these parts in this screen here. So since this is the miscellaneous parts screen, it could be anchors, perimeter anchors. It could be some sort of diverter or something that needs to be every so many inches. And now you have the ability to add that part, or the correct quantity of those parts. So I would check the box. So I could go over here per wall jam. If it needs to be, if this is a perimeter situation, every 12 inches and it needs to be 4 inches from the edge, then it's going to calculate the appropriate number of these parts for the left wall jam, and I would want to do the same thing for the right wall jam if it's the same condition. So we didn't have that ability before where it could do kind of multiples of parts based on spacing. We always had the spacing down here for, this would be like pressure plate screws for a curtain wall system, because if you need a screw every 10 inches or 12 inches, we could say, yeah, it's every 12 inches and whatever the part is. Now, another thing that this new window does is it lets you start typing a part number. So if I know what the part number is, I can just start typing it and maybe pick it from the list here. So there's a part that I may need, but this one already has the spacing, so we don't add that extra little feature for this field. But so it's basically going to say apply this part every 12 inches for every lineal foot on the job. So it would be all across the whole elevation. Every lineal foot is counted and then divided up to figure out how many parts are needed. So the other option for adding a part, though, just like before, you could right click, but now you can actually click a normal button. So we kind of improved that feature where, if it's something that's needed per sill and I don't know what the part number is, so I can try typing, a letter, and it's like, that's not really what I want. So I'm going to go over here and click on this. And now I can kind of do the, looks like we got to fix that little problem, but now we can kind of do the deal there. Oh, that's funny. That's not disappearing, is it? I bet if I go over here, it will. So yeah, I can click in the field I want to add it to, and then I can use this, and I can actually look for, a part. Oops, divert. Let's see if they have deflectors. Yeah, there's water deflectors. So let's say it was a water deflector or something like that. I could insert the part that way. So that was there before. You just had to right click on the little box that was there. So now it's just an actual button. But that is the main thing. We've given you the ability to add, to have the program calculate the quantities of certain hardware parts for an elevation based on spacing for that particular member. So if it's at the vertical, at the wall jam, at the horizontal, you just have to do it for each member that condition needs to be applied to. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what all the changes are to this screen, this framing system window. So I can point to a part, it shows me, I can click on it, point to the blue arrow. It gives me the adjustment capabilities in that screen, in that little extra window. And it still shows you what those changes are when they're here. Now, those other changes that we looked at when we were here, those don't actually show up on the line because that is something brand new and we couldn't just throw it in that same line. It would look bad anyway. But you do have to click their little blue arrow or point to the blue arrow to see that kind of advanced settings for the spacing settings. But that's pretty much it. Keep tuned for more videos, and thanks for using our software.